Hello dear learners, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we will be talking about the Spring Maven example. In our few previous videos, we have been seeing various concepts about Spring, as in the Spring architecture, what is dependency injection, what is inversion of control, what are the various ways in which dependency injection can be implemented. So now is the right time when we start looking at an example of Spring and Maven. In this particular example, we will be creating a Maven project and implementing the whole Spring code using this particular Maven project. That is why it is being called a Spring Maven example. If you want me to make a video on what exactly is Maven, how it is used, what it is used for, please mention that in the comments and I'll make a video on what exactly Maven is and how it is used in projects, right? So without further ado, let's get started. So if you see, what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to create a new project. Now for creating a new project, what I will have to do is I'll have to go to File and I'll have to say New and I'll have to say Maven project. Now most of the Eclipse that you have these days, the the newer versions will have Maven implemented in it. If you don't have it configured in your Eclipse, again please mention it in the comments and I will create a project of how to configure Eclipse with Maven, right? So what we will do is we will say create a simple project. We are not going to make something very complicated. You can either choose this or you can even select the archetype. So if you are selecting the archetype, you have to select the Maven archetype quick start. This is the most simplest of projects. It's like a basic simple project to be created. So we select that. We select Maven archetype quick start, right? That is what we select. Then we say next. For the artifact ID, for the group ID, we'll be saying com.learning, as you can see here. And for artifact ID, we will be saying a Spring Maven project. So this is going to be our project name and this is going to be our package name. So usually what you want to give as a package name is what you mention here, and here you mention the project name. So that is what we will be giving here, and we'll say finish. So our basic Maven project is created. Now for any particular Maven project, the most important file is going to be this particular pom.xml file. In this particular pom.xml file, we will be adding our dependencies. Now for this particular project, we have dependency only on the Spring core package and the Spring context package. These are the two dependencies that we will be having here. So we will be only adding those here in the dependencies. You can see here dependency, we will be adding that. Also we will be adding a property called as the Spring version. So what we will do here is we will say spring.version and we will then use this particular property later for our dependency. So we will say 5.0.0 dot release. Okay, so that is what we will be doing here. Again, I am not using a very latest version here. You can use a later versions also. I'm using this because I find this as a quite stable version. Now what we will be doing here after this is done is we will be adding dependency here. So we will say dependency, okay, and then inside dependency we will have group ID. So for group ID we will be saying group ID and we will be saying org.spring framework. Okay, that is going to be the package in which it is going to reside. So we'll mention that and we'll give an artifact ID. This is going to be the second thing that we'll be mentioning, right? And for that we will be saying spring-core. Okay, and for the version, this is the last thing that we'll be mentioning, the version, for which we will say dollar and inside curly bracket we will say this spring.version, so that this can be automatically used here. So it will automatically try to find a property with name spring.version and it will try to include it. Okay, and then we will have one more dependency on similar lines, and for that we will say spring-context. That's going to be the only change. Everything else remains same because Spring context also is inside Spring framework, and version anyways it is going to take from here, so we don't need to change anything there. So this is going to be our pom.xml, wherein we define the dependencies. As you can see, the moment we define the dependencies, all those dependencies as jars have come up here, because Maven makes sure that whatever dependencies that you define here, they are included as libraries in your project. So it will automatically find those libraries and include them in your project, right? So they have got included here in our project. Once this is done, what we need to do next is basically we need to create a you can say a Spring context or a Spring configuration file that we have been speaking about in our previous videos too, wherein we were talking that you can have an XML configuration for your code. So how do you do that? For that you need to right click, you need to say new, and you need to say a source folder. Okay, this source folder basically needs to go inside your src main, and inside main you need to have the resources folder. So you can say a new folder and you can say resources. Okay, and inside this resources folder basically you need to add your XML file. So you need to go to other and you need to say XML file. Now ideally you can name this XML file as whatever you want, spring.xml, abc.xml, pqr.xml, whatever you want. But as a industry standard, this is normally named as application context.xml, right? So we will use the same one and we'll just outright say finish. No change here. Now for this particular application context file, we need to use a beans tag. This beans tag needs to have a lot of schema definition for the various packages that you want to include. In our case, as I have said earlier, it is going to be only Spring core and Spring context. Along with that, we will also have Spring beans. Now you don't need to sit and remember all this. What you can do is you can store this once. I'll share this when I share my video on the channel. I will mention this in the comments, in the description below, and I will give you this whole particular tag and you can use this. This is the most basic tag that you need, so I can do that. So for the timing, I am also going to just copy paste it here. This is how that particular tag looks like. So you need to include this particular beans tag. Okay, this is the opening and the closing, and you can see inside the beans tag, these are the various XML namespaces which are being defined, and these are the prefixes for these two. This one does not need because this is the default one, which has beans. It has schema instance so that we can define these schema locations into it, and we have the schema context. Now this particular context is used to define our component scan. So that is what we are going to use it for the component scan. You can close it here itself, and here we will be mentioning our base package. So for our case, it is going to be com.learning. Okay, is going to be our package, right? So that is what we are going to mention, com.learning. Correct? This is going to be our base package. Now what we need to do is we need to define our beans and their dependencies here. So we will be taking our same car and tire example here to show a very basic example. So what I'll do is firstly I will define a bean, and inside this bean we have various values. To start with, we have an ID. So I'll be mentioning the ID as tire, and we have a class. Okay, so I'll be mentioning this as com.learning. And you can mention some particular package if you want. So for the timing, I'm going to mention model, and I'll say MRF tires. Okay, so this is going to be my class, and inside this I'm going to define a property. Okay, so I'll just have one property here, and that is going to be type. Okay, the type of the tire, okay, is what I'm mentioning here, and I'm going to say the value is going to be, let's say this is tubeless. Okay, so I'm just mentioning one particular bean here. Then I will define one more bean here, and that bean is going to be our car bean. If you haven't followed my videos, you can check them out here. Okay, and you'll be able to understand what example am I talking about. In my previous videos, I have discussed this example in detail, so you can just check those videos. I'll say ID, and I'll say car here, and I'll say class is going to be again com.learning.model.car, right? And inside this I will have a property injection. So basically I am injecting the properties here using the property injection. Okay, and I will say this time the name is going to be tire of the property, and this is going to refer, so it is going to refer to the tire B. So it will try to look for a tire bean in it. I need to close this particular tag here, and that is it. So I have two beans defined here, a car bean and a tire bean, as you can see here. Okay, now what we will do is, once this is done, we start creating our classes. So I already have a main class here which I'll be using in my code, okay, a little later. But beyond that, I need to create two classes here, that is as we defined here, one MRF tires class and another a car class. Okay, so but before I do that, I'll create a interface as the first thing. So I'll say new, and I'll say interface, and I'll name this interface as the tire interface, and I'll say add, and this particular finish, and this particular interface is going to just show the type. So this will say public void show tire type. This is going to be a simple method, nothing complicated. So for the sake of understanding, we are keeping it simple for the type. So I'll say show tire type. Once this is done, what we will do is we will create a, again this is not gone in the correct project, so we need to correct package, so we need to correct it. We need to say com.learning.model, and I'll just move it to the model package, so it is being moved to that package. Then I'll say new, and I'll say class, and this is going to be the MRF tires class, and it will implement the tire interface. Okay, and I'll say finish. What I'll do here is I'll basically define a string variable, private string type, and I'll generate a few getter and setters for it. So I'll say source, and I'll say generate getters and setters, select all, and say generate. Beyond that, I'll also have this particular method from the interface, that is show tire type, and I'll just say sysout tire type colon, and I'll say, you can say get type if you want. Okay, so it gets you the tire type. So once this is done, let's try to add another class, that is our car class. So we'll say class, and we'll say car, and we'll say finish. In this particular car class, we will define an property called as tire from the tire interface, and generate its getters and setters. So we'll say source, say generate getters and setters, select all, and generate. Okay, and we will define a method. We'll say public void car details. This is going to be a very simple method, and inside this particular method we will say sysout, and we'll say car details. Okay, and we will say plus, and we'll say tire dot, we will say show tire type. So it will show us the tire type in the car details. So that is how it will work. Once this is done, we are done with most of our classes. We need to now come to app.java, remove this whatever existing hello world code that you have. You can remove these comments also, and we will basically use something called as an application context here. Okay, so in our next video we will be talking about what exactly is application context. There's also another term that coins around application context, that is bean factory. So we will see what exactly is bean factory, what is application context, and how they are different from each other in our upcoming video. So please stay tuned, and even look for my future videos. So we'll say application context AC is equals to, now there are various types of application context available, which also we will talk about in our next video. So for the timing, we are basically using a class path XML application context object here, and we are passing the location of our application context file. Now since this is inside the resources folder, we just need to mention the name of the file and it will automatically find it. So we need to say application context .xml, that's it. And once this is done, we can get the bean object. Now for this to work, we need to implement, or we need to import the application context also, and we need to say ac.getBean. This is the method that we'll use, and we'll provide a name here. Now what name do you provide here? Usually it is basically the name that you've given here, so it is usually going to be this name. So here, since it is car, we will say car. So what Spring will do is it will try to get us a bean with the name car. Here we have defined that car class, or an object of type car, has a dependency on tire, for which you need to refer to some another bean which has the name as tire. So it will try to look for a bean, another bean with ID tire, and this is where it finds it, and it says that it takes one value of a type, and it has tubeless as its value. So we are defining all that here, which Spring will handle and get us. So what we need to do here, we need to say car, or you can say my car is equals to, and we need to typecast it to type car, and we need to import the car class, and finally we can say my car dot car details. So this will print the car details. Now let's quickly try to run this particular code and see how it works, and then I'll have a quick recap of what we've done, how they are connected to each other in this particular program. So let's quickly try to run and see if it works. So we just try to run this, and you can see it is showing car details, and tire type, you can see it is showing tubeless, which it is getting from here. So if I change this from tubeless to tubed, save this, again try to run my code, you will see that it is now showing tubed, right? So that is how it works. So let's quickly have a recap of what we did. So we created a Maven project first, which had a pom.xml file into it, wherein we defined the Spring version, which was 5.0.0 release, and we defined two dependencies here, Spring Core and Spring Context, because of which there were a lot of Spring dependencies that were included in our project. Then we defined our configuration file, the XML configuration file, which had this beans tag inside which all the beans are defined, and we had this context component scan here to tell our Spring which base package to look for when it looks for the beans, or for any such component, Spring component. So for any Spring component, if it has to look for, it has to go into this particular com.learning base package, is what we mentioned here. Then we defined two beans here, tire and car, wherein the tire was a dependency on car, which we injected here using our property. Okay, and then we defined the tire interface, which had this one show tire type method, mrf tires class, which implemented the tire interface, a type attribute, and setter getters in the implementation of the show tire type, wherein we were just showing the tire type. Lastly, we created this car class, which had the tire type defined into it, or a property, or you can say a dependency, which was injected here, and a setter getter for it here, and the method that showed us the car details, and called the show tire type method of the tire class. And in the last class, that is our test class, we created an object of application context. Its implementation that we used was class path XML application context, and we mentioned the path, as I said here, because it was in the resources folder, which is by default on the class path. We did not need to separately mention the path because we were using class path XML application context. We just had to mention the name of the file, and if it is on the class path, that is in the resources folder, it would automatically find it here. Then we obtained the object of the car class using the getBean method. You can see we nowhere wrote new car anywhere. We got it through the getBean method, which referred to the application context file, and created the car object for us and provided us the object with which we called the car details, and this is what we saw as an output. So that is it for today. If you like my content, please like my videos, subscribe to my channel, and support my channel by seeing my videos till the end, and share it with your friends, family, and please comment in my comment section about my videos. What do you like about my videos? Is there anything that you think should be included, should be improved in my videos? Your feedback, your suggestions are always welcome, so please do mention them in the comments. That is it for today. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a lovely week ahead. Thank you.